In every new episode, we kept seeing different versions of Zooble, and it was pretty clear she wasn't vibing with her body. But after therapy, we finally got the official word. And now we're about to meet Zooble's new look in the upcoming episode 4. Let's take a quick flashback to what Zooble had to say about her body.
It's me, remember? I don't like myself. I hate this body. I hate all these stupid removable pieces. I just want to find something that feels good.
Oh, yeah, now I remember why I couldn't remember. It's because that problem is already solved. Simply swap out your undesirable Zooble parts for better ones.
I've been trying to find parts I like since the day I got here.
In my previous video, I mentioned that one way to solve the issue could be a new body. If episode 3 gave us a little bit of a heads up on that, episode 4 is really going to show us a whole new Zooble who's finally comfortable in her own skin. Also, remember that teaser we got over a year ago, where we were introduced to the characters? It gave us a sneak peek at this issue, but that's not all. We need to go back to another old concept art, where Zooble is shown looking really strange. This leak, though, confirms that Zooble can literally change any part of her body, including her head. And honestly, I think the head is the biggest issue for her. Just look at that triangle. No way that's comfortable. So, before we get into the reveal of Zooble's new head, let's take a look at her box of limbs. He also showed up in the new episode, in that old leak of Zooble's room, and of course, in the old concept art. Plus, one of the fans straight up asked Gooseworx what limits Zooble has when it comes to limbs, and Gooseworx said there are none. So we've got this box of endless limbs, and they're really going to come in handy in episode 4. In Zooble's room, we spot this tiny green triangle, and even though there's a theory that it's her final head, it's definitely not. The thing's way too small to be ready, and it's not going to be comfortable for Zooble. It's more likely just some accessory that changes with each episode. Honestly, I think the perfect head shape for Zooble would be a square, and maybe it'll even be green, since that color's just chilling by itself. But there's also another small detail on her head that's easy to miss: her weird eye. One of Zooble's eyes is normal, but the other one looks more like a knockoff. Sure, Zooble can move it around and maybe even see a little with it, but it's nowhere near the quality of a regular eye. Gooseworx mentioned that this eye can be replaced, and ideally it should be, since it'd really improve Zooble's quality of life. But since everyone's gotten so used to her eyes, and Zooble's probably used to them too, nothing's likely going to change. Even in the leak, Zooble's looking for her eye, not asking for a new one. Even though Zooble's body doesn't change from episode to episode, we do see something totally new in the leak. Don't worry though, that monstrosity isn't going to show up on Zooble, at least because that would create total chaos. If she hates her bent arms, she's definitely not adding that body. I think her body's going to stay the same as in the previous episodes, but the only thing that might change is the color. Now, let's move on to the most interesting limbs, her arms and legs. Let's remember what Zooble said about her limbs.
Gangle's mask starts spinning, and Zooble turns straight.
My limbs straighten up and f*** off.
What about you?
He refuses to show us because he's a coward.
I want to keep the mystery alive.
If her body has limbs with those bends in them, then when she holds her breath, they probably straighten out. And that's likely uncomfortable for Zooble, maybe even painful. Looking at the old concept art, we don't see her usual claw, and her arms are exactly the same as what we see in episode 3. When you check out the arms of the other characters, except for Gangle, they all look pretty human, which is why they can interact with the digital circus without any issues. That claw has practically become a symbol for Zooble at this point. We see it in the room leak, it stands out in her box of limbs, and from the very beginning, Zooble's had that claw. In episode 2, things got even worse with her arm, but episode 3 seems like it gave her some hope for normal hands. If she could swap out her right hand to match her left, it would make her life so much easier. Now let's talk about another key part of the human body: legs. In the older leaks, we saw how tough it is for Zooble to move around on those legs, and the scenes from the previous episodes have only confirmed that.
Yeah, no.
Wow, sounds fun. What do you think, Pomni?
Sheesh, I thought he'd never leave.
We've often seen her with one good leg, while the other one's just a mess, honestly. But again, episode 3 was a game changer because now both of her legs finally look more human and comfortable for Zooble. Think back to the pilot and episode 2. One of her legs seemed perfect for her. So you might be asking, why did Zooble swap that leg for a new one in episode 3 then? Like I've said before, Zooble's always been a little quirky, and she's still figuring out who she is. Changing her limbs is the only way she can find some happiness in the digital circus. That's why she keeps experimenting to find the ideal setup. But even in that concept art, we still see that same purple leg. Now let's remember the box that Cain gave Zooble. Notice how there's an orange leg that looks just like the purple one. Chances are, in episode 4, we'll see her rocking 2 matching legs, but in different colors. So what we're looking at here is Zooble finally getting the perfect body that'll let her feel comfortable and join in on new adventures with everyone else. Only then will Zooble finally close that major chapter of her life that's been haunting her, and we'll get to see a genuinely happy Zooble. Up until now, she's always been sad, a little blunt, and straight up rough around the edges, but we've never seen her truly happy. Now let's dive into the reality of the digital circus and see how likely this is to happen in the next episode. Cain's the boss of the digital circus, and he can pretty much do anything, including giving Zooble the parts that fit her perfectly. After all, finding them in that endless box of limbs could take forever. But as we know, Cain's main focus isn't really the well-being of the circus residents. It's all about setting up new adventures for them. He's always hard at work planning those, but doesn't really pay much attention to their problems, as Zooble herself pointed out during the therapy session.
No, I mean, I've already told you what my problem is. You just never remember because... never mind.
My mind is a beeswax polished coconut. Nothing ever escapes these cakes. So what can I do to make my adventures more appealing to you?
See? This is exactly what I'm talking about. All you're thinking about is your adventures. It has nothing to do with the adventures. It's more just...
But after that therapy session, we saw that Cain can actually show some emotion and be vulnerable, which seemed impossible before. And a huge part of that is thanks to Zooble. I'm convinced that after that conversation, Cain realized that adventures aren't the only thing that matters in the digital circus. It's also about the everyday lives of its residents. And since Zooble is now closer to Cain than anyone else, I think it makes sense that he'll start with her. I'm 99% sure that's what's going to happen. As a way of saying thanks, I believe Cain will make Zooble's life easier in episode 4, and I'm beyond excited about that. Also, let's not forget what Zooble said about no one liking Cain's adventures. There's something important hidden in that line, and I think it's tied to the new Zooble we'll see in the next episode.
Just forget it.
Forget what?
Cain, nobody likes your stupid adventures.
Ha ha! Good one, Zooble.
Ragatha's just too nice to say anything. Jax just likes to fight with everybody. Gangle's too shy to speak up. Kinger's insane. And Pomni, she looks traumatized every time she comes back from one.
Oh, Zooble, Zooble, Zooble. Making adventures is my art.
Jax has always been known for his jokes and pranks, which honestly feel more like bullying. And the relationship between him and Zooble has practically become legendary. But is it really as straightforward as it seems?
Ooh, a new AI. You don't want to mess with the new AI, Zooby?
Yeah, no.
Zooble isn't just cold toward Jax. She's distant with everyone. And by now, it's pretty clear that a lot of it comes down to her uncomfortable body, which causes her pain. Because of that, she can't even have a normal conversation with anyone.
Man, I can't believe Kaufmo just gave up like that. I mean, no offense, Kinger, but I always thought you would be next.
Thank you.
Once she gets her new body, all of that's going to change. We've already seen that Zooble is capable of showing kindness to others, like in the scene at Kaufmo's funeral.
Got everything ready. Hey.
In the end, we're going to get a whole new Zooble who'll bring joy through her interactions with everyone else. That'll definitely make the digital circus a lot brighter than it was before, at least for Zooble. What kind of look do you think would suit Zooble? Let me know in the comments. And for now, see you soon. Stay tuned for a video that's going to change the way you think about some of the characters.